Hi, welcome to Barb's Kitchen Classroom. Today we're going to make a basic white bread. Why a basic white bread when everybody else is making sourdough and whole wheat and multigrain? Well, bread, although only having a very few simple ingredients, can be really hard to make, and I'm sure many of you have struggled with making bread in the past. So I always like to start with a simple white bread, and once you've mastered white bread, you know what texture you're looking for, you know what firmness you're looking for, and you can understand what you're looking for when you're making a different kind of bread. So the ingredients we're using today are water. I personally like to use olive oil, but you can use canola oil, vegetable oil, lard. I even know people who use heavy cream instead of oil. We also need sugar, salt, not much, just a little bit, and flour. I like to use a bread flour, so either a hickory flour or a strong bread flour. So we'll start first with the water. And since I need a half a cup of oil, I have only put 3 cups of water in here. Normally we need 4 cups of water, and I do have a 1 cup of water over here. So first I'll start by checking the temperature. I don't want the water temperature to be any more than 118 degrees. My yeast won't survive if it's more than 118 degrees. This is currently at 120, but by the time I add some oil, and I'm going to add my oil, just a half a cup, to my water, because then I don't have a sticky measuring cup to wash. And it should also bring down the temperature of my water. So there we go. Double check my temperature again. There we go, just about perfect. And I'll check the temperature of this one. Excellent. So into the bowl they go. Put these aside. Next, I will add my sugar. And the sugar is going to help the yeast do its work. Most recipes will call for half a cup. I find that a bit sweet, so I like to use 1/4 of a cup. Sometimes, depending on what I'm doing, I might add a little more. I will add a skinny tablespoon of salt. Salt and yeast aren't best friends, so salt will kill yeast, so I'm just going to mix it up a little bit to make sure that my yeast doesn't hit any straight salt. At this point, if you're using an all-purpose flour or you want bread with a little more protein in it, you could add an egg, or even 2 if you really wanted to. So next I will create a raft for my yeast to land on, because if you put your yeast in right now, it will work, it'll be fine, but potentially it may clump, and you don't really want all your yeast stuck together in one side of your dough. The other thing that's good to know is if your house is a little cool, start preheating your oven now to about 350 degrees. Having a warm environment makes your dough rise better and makes the yeast work better. A rapid rise yeast will work in a colder environment, but it will take more time, and you want to get this done fairly efficiently. I know when my mother used to make bread, it was an all-day process. But now, with machines like my Bosch, it can be done fairly efficiently. From start to finish, on a good day, if I don't get distracted by the TV or kids or husbands or anything else, I can have my bread done in about 2 hours. So now I have my little bit of yeast in there. I'll put on my splash ring, because nobody wants the cloud of flour raining down upon them. There we go. And I'll just mix it up. At this point, I have a really soupy, textured mixture. It looks like that. So I need something that's a little firmer than that. There we go. Got it back on. So putting my splash ring back on. I will continue to add flour until the sides of the bowl are clean. I don't want any dough sticking to the side of the bowl. If you have a little dough sticking to the side of the bowl, it's fine. Your dough might be a little loose, but it'll still rise. It'll still make a lovely, lovely bread. Other things you can add, if you're having trouble with your dough structure, at this point you could add some dough enhancer. There's several dough enhancers available commercially. Tag sticking out. All right, so I'm going to turn on the mixer. I'm going to add my flour until the sides of the bowl are clean. If sound is your trigger, you've just heard the transmission in this machine gear down. By the time we hear the second gear down, the dough should be thoroughly mixed. There we go, we're getting there. Okay, now we have the dough thoroughly incorporated and everything mixed together. But we haven't developed the glutens. One of the tests for knowing if your gluten is developed is the window test. And you can see that I can't get a nice window by pulling this straight. It just tears apart. So I will continue to mix this for about 4 minutes. All right, it's been about 4 minutes. You don't want to overwork your dough. That's as bad as underworking your dough. You can break the gluten. So I'll take a little piece and I'll start pulling it apart and see how thin I can make it. Oh yeah, so that's from me sticking my fingernail through it. This is a well-developed gluten. So I'll put that little piece back in. I'm just going to add a very small amount of oil just to grease it up. You don't want to add any more flour at this point because you don't want glutens developing at different times. So I'm just going to mix this a little bit. And now it should be nice and supple as it raises for another 15 minutes. See you in 15 minutes. So the dough has been raising for 15 minutes, and it's about double the size it was when we left it to sit on the counter. We're going to knead it again for another 3 to 4 minutes, and then we're going to let it rest again, and then we'll make bread. So if you want to, you can do this all day long. If something comes up, you have a problem outside, the dog escapes out of the yard, the cat runs out of the house, you can come back, knead your dough, let it rise, and you can keep doing that all day if you have to. But for now, we're going to turn it on, punch it down. We'll put the lid back on, let it set on the counter, and get all nice and bubbly. Make sure you don't lock your lid down. If you do, your alarm will not be the sound of your timer going off. It'll be the sound of your lid hitting the floor. So, see you in 15 minutes. We're back, and we're ready to make loaves. So I will take my dough out of here. Actually, the first thing I will do is I will grease my surface just a little bit so I don't get a whole lot of dough sticking to my countertop, or in this case, my chop mat. And it also helps to get the dough off the dough hook. There we go. Our friend Mr. Dough Hook can wait there. Pop the bread out, or pop the dough out of the bowl. Awesome. So at this point, you can eyeball making loaves, or you can cut it with a piece of dental floss and make your loaves. I have a dough divider today, or a bench scraper, depending on what term you're most familiar with. And it looks like I will be able to make, I think today I'll make 4 loaves of bread. So I'll get my pans out, get my pans ready. So that means I need to spray them. We use Vegeline. It's a commercial pan spray that we have here in the store. And it is just oils and a propellant, so it won't make you cough as you spray it. Unless, of course, you have a cold, in which case it might. But all right. So if I'm going to make 4 loaves of bread, I'll start by eyeballing it, and I'll divide my dough in approximately half. So it's always best to cut the glutens and not tear them. Not always possible, but always the goal. And then I'll divide these in about half again. This is going to be a larger loaf, but this is a larger pan, so it's nice to have a loaf that looks pretty. So to see, I'm going to scale my bread, which means I'm going to stick it on a scale and make sure that my balls of dough are about the same size. So this is 725 grams. And this one is 608, so it's a little, okay, so that's about 709. Come on. That one's a little smaller. Okay. So, if you want your loaves to be perfectly identical, then you'd want them to weigh almost exactly the same thing. So, let's see, that should get me a little closer. So, ooh, no. There we go. All right. There we go. We're all in the neighborhood now. Now, there's several ways to do this. You can push it out flat like this and then roll it and then stick it in your greased pan. You can pick it up and play with it, which is what I've been doing since I started making bread, because that's the way my mom did it. Although the rolling method tends to get you a more consistent looking loaf of bread. It'll be more even across the whole surface of the bread and probably closer to your pan size. And last one, I'll do 2 each way. You got to go with what you know. There you go. And before we let it rise one more time, I will just grease my hands. Usually I have a brush to do this, but you just like to oil the surface of your loaf because that keeps it elastic as it rises. but you don't want to put so much in there that you wind up deep frying the bottom when you stick it in the oven. Now we'll leave these to sit on the counter. I'll cover them with a clean cloth that, oh yeah, I found in there. We'll come back in an hour. They'll be ready to pop into the oven. Bread's ready to come out of the oven. So we got the first 3 out. Now for the last one. All right. Okay, you're going to want to take your bread out of the pan as soon as it comes out of the oven. If you stack your pans like this, you don't have to wash the bottom. So then you want to take a little butter or something and just brush the top. If you're really quick, you can run it under cold water and it'll give you the same effect, that shiny top, without the grease. So by buttering it, when you put it in your bread bag, you will get kind of a smoky look on your bread bag. If that's important for you to have clean bread bags, then I suggest you run it quickly under some water and it'll still give you that shiny top. Now, time for bread. You can cut super hot bread. You just have to hold it gently and really make sure you let the knife do the work. And it is really hot. So there's the piece for the cameraman. And I'm going to use an oven mitt because it is really hot. And actually, I will turn this one on its side now because it's a little more stable, especially after you've cut off the crust, if you cut it sideways for the first few pieces when it's super hot. Another trick to cutting even bread is to hold your knife by the blade and not cut your fingernail. There we go. Nice, fresh, hot bread.